And I want to introduce Kirk Spano, one of the original guests of F.A.C.E. Kirk, it's been a long time. We don't talk as often. I have a pretty long rotation nowadays, so glad to have you back in it. Welcome back. How are you, buddy? Waiting for you to unmute and express yourself now that all the adults are back from the Hamptons.
Yeah, it appears you forget about your old boyfriends once in a while,
huh? You know, I just called me I'm kind of a guest whore. All right. So anyway, I didn't forget about you, Kirk. Sometimes people slip through the cracks. I'm a guest hunter, and sometimes I'm out there looking for new blood, and I appreciate the guys that were here at the beginning, and you're one of them, and great to have you back. What a great topic you've chosen. The dollar here. Okay.
Yeah.
So what are you seeing?
I heard you guys talking about it, so I thought I'd pull these up and add some other things.
Yeah.
Lots to talk about. I think there's a lot of great trades coming up this fall. I think a lot of them are going to hinge on the Federal Reserve. I think everybody is probably in agreement on that. About a decade ago, I said that the dollar would go on a long-term bull market. I wrote this on Market Watch in a series of articles in 2012 to 2013. And of course, we've gotten that bull market in the dollar.
Yeah, I am here to, affirm that since I've been talking to you, anytime I brought up the potential of a bear market in the dollar, you've been steadfast, constructive on the dollar for years now.
Right. And that largely comes from demographic reasons, massive benefit of our geography, our military, our diplomatic core, the financial reach around the world. There's just a long list of reasons why the dollar should be strong. And now we're entering a couple of new eras. And one of the new eras is cryptocurrency. We saw that Saudi Arabia is moving towards legitimizing Bitcoin there. It's something that we talked about in May that I said, look, the emerging markets and other markets were going to legitimize Bitcoin. So I'll get to that in a few minutes. But the dollar is peaking. I said as soon as Joe Biden was elected that was going to mark a local bottom in the dollar and that we were going to get a big rally. So we're getting the big rally. I think that in the short term, though, your trade is to look for a reversal in the dollar. And I don't.
Why fundamentally? What's going to drive it, Kirk? Because I ask people, I go, give me one fundamental reason, like why the euro would go up, why the dollar would top, and not many can come up with an answer. They have to think to try and come up with something. So what's your reason for a dollar break?
The fundamental reason is that you're looking for economic reasons in a world where economic reasoning doesn't always follow people's narrative. And the dollar is always going to be strong just because America. But in the shorter term timeframes, you get overbought and oversold. And I'm a quant, I was a quant before it was cool. And you simply have to look for shortages of buyers and abundances of buyers and shortages of sellers and abundances of sellers. And right now we're starting to see a shortage of buyers of the dollar. That's all there really is to it. And the margin that you have propping up some of these dollar trades, once the dollar trades stall, and that'll happen on some big institutional move that nobody sees coming, or the Fed saying something that nobody expected. It'll just be some event.
How about the BOJ? I mean, the yen has been on a tear in the opposite direction. I mean, it's been a record move. Could it come from Asia?
Absolutely. The yen
Chinese or the Japanese.
I don't think the Chinese matter as much as the Chinese think they matter. But I think Japan, the yen is always a good indicator. It's just historically proven to be a good indicator. So if we see a reversal in the dollar here, I'd see somewhere before the end of the year would be my guess. In fact, I think it could happen before the election.
All right, Amira is saying the elections.
Yeah. And
so what would be bearish? Not as much of a flip for the for a Republican flip in the House, and that the Democrats hold on to more seats than the market was expecting, or what?
The Democrats holding Congress would be bullish for the dollar. So, the idea that the Republicans are somehow good for the dollar belies history. I mean, the Republicans have never been good for the dollar in my lifetime. So I don't know if that changed, but it hasn't been the case. I mean, you look Bush, you look Trump. Trump came right out and said he was trying to kill the dollar, and he tried, and he hit these big support levels, and then he lost. So you get that. If Trump had won, the dollar. Yeah, if Trump had won, we probably would have collapsed on the dollar because that's what he wanted. So the dollar is strong. Why did Democrats drive the dollar up? Is because they know that from standard of living standpoint, that's good for their constituency, for 60% of the 70% of the population, maybe 90% of the population. So you're just running out of buyers on the dollar right now. That's all there is to it.
So it's more technical. There's really no major fundamental shift or anything. It's just the way the market's set up, which is how it is normally anyway. And then we come up with reasons to explain it, right?
Like there's always a narrative that somebody throws on the Reddit or Twitter or whatever. And, here's your narrative. I'm like, whatever. I've been saying the same thing for 15 years. So, I think that you can just see this reversal in the dollar coming up. I said back in March and May that I thought the Fed would ease up a little bit in September. We'll see. I got a month, 3 weeks before that, we find out. I've kind of couched that a little bit. I do think the Fed backs off. I don't think they outright pivot, but I think they back off a little bit at some point this year. I think it'll just be lower interest rate increases. I think they're going to run off money off the balance sheet into next year sometime. But what I think is happening, and it's something that you brought up about a year ago, is this great divergence, is what I've been calling it in the markets, where the whole sustainability idea, the decarbonization idea, is going to drive a lot of things, and that's all technologically driven. So where are we in some of these pivot points? It's hard to know, but we did hit a pretty important idea when it comes to electric cars in the United States. And since this article was published on Bloomberg, we got the incentive bill. What do they call it? The Inflation Reduction Act. Whatever. It's a sustainable energy and a little bit of healthcare and a little bit of corporate taxes act. And
a lot of IRS employees.
Yeah, and so maybe I will move to Puerto Rico. We'll see, but Ford is targeting 600. I might move to Puerto Rico. I like it. There's a lot going for it.
Hey, look, anywhere there's a casino, you'll feel at home.
Right. So right, Ford is targeting 600,000 EVs by the end of next year, and by 2024 and 25, 2 million. So if Ford is telling you that, hey, a quarter of our cars are going to be EV in the next 30 to 36 months, that's pretty in sync with what Bloomberg is saying and other sources are saying, is that the United States is going to be about 25% EV sales 3-4 years out, which is after the 2020 CES. I told everybody 2026 and 2027 are the years that EV adoption just starts screaming, and we're on pace for that. The materials are there, the supply chains are moving. Ohio's building the Intel plant, and that'll help a lot of things with cars. And you've got the Ford super factory in Kentucky. There's a lot that's going to change for oil demand. If I can find oil demand here, this one. So, no, it was this one. Oil demand is slowly turning over. and you're going to have supply increase. So another trade that I think the traders should be looking for is, when does oil turn over and head back down to that 60 to 80 range that I talked about in May? Right after I said that, oil started going down. And I think this little rebound rally, I don't know if OPEC, Saudi Arabia in particular, is going to try to screw with the elections. I don't really know. I think that's hard to say. What I do think happened in Saudi Arabia when Joe Biden was over there, though, is I think he told Saudi Arabia in no uncertain terms, if you screw with me, I'm going to screw with you. And, I got to see Joe Biden in Milwaukee yesterday. I tell you what, you can like him or not like him, whatever you are politically, I don't really care, but the guy's kind of a badass. And anybody who doesn't think that he's a tough guy just hasn't really been paying attention for 30 years. So anybody who puts pressure on him is going to get pressure back. And I'd be surprised if OPEC and Saudi Arabia do much more than try to talk the price of oil to around 90, which is, of course, the price that Saudi Arabia wants. Saudi Arabia needs $80 to $90 oil to make their budget work. Russia is clearly making bank on this right now. But as soon as their buyers dry up, they're in trouble. They've already had huge damage to their economy. So, the war that I, saw with Iran and Israel, or Iran and Saudi Arabia, that didn't happen yet. The Russia-Ukraine war, which I kind of talked about, I never really thought that he'd go as far as he did. But, you've got this pressure on oil in the very short term, and all these things lining up to push it back down. Where is the tipping point on that? I don't really know. I mean, you guys are much better week-to-week traders than I am. So I would just say you should be hunting the next oil short probably after the next oil pop, right? And I think that's the easiest way to look at it.
Yeah, maybe back to 110, 115 would be a decent area, wrong over 130.
Yeah, and I listened to you guys talk about that. So it makes a lot of sense to me that the price of oil jumps one more time. However, like I said, if Saudi Arabia does feel in any way threatened by President Biden, and I think that they should, then maybe it won't. So that's hard to know where that's going to go. The trade that I really, really like right now, though, is, and I talked about it last time, is Bitcoin. When Bitcoin was 50,000 something, I gave an interview in January, said it's going to drop down to 20,000. Well, now we've been bouncing around 20,000 for a month. I told you in May that was going to happen, and it's happening. If you guys are trading Bitcoin futures or Bitcoin or whatever you're doing with that, man, I just think that you can make a whopper of a trade. And here's the reason why it's going to happen. Institutional adoption is moving. Somebody keeps soaking up Bitcoin at around 20,000. So all the hodlers, all the kids, all the $7,000 accounts and $5,000 accounts and $12,000 accounts who are like, oh my God, I can't let this go to zero on me, so I'm going to sell. All these people who are selling because they need the money because of inflation, or they moved out of their parents' basement or whatever, those Bitcoin are getting bought. And I'm one of the buyers. I've been buying Bitcoin every time it goes under 20,000. So I think that you should be looking for a trade for Bitcoin to go on a monster rally. And it's going to happen fast. And it's going to happen because of a news event, maybe Saudi Arabia, which is talking about Bitcoin, maybe the bonds down in El Salvador, or maybe some African nations. There are no shortage of emerging markets that are tinkering with Bitcoin. And all you need is an institutional investor, say BlackRock, getting in bed with Coinbase to move a big hunk of the market. Right now, about 25% of family offices own Bitcoin, and they're projecting that'll be 75% by the end of next year. So you've got the richest people in the world, you've got emerging markets, and I think that you're probably,
it wasn't only small retail guys, Scaramucci, Michael Saylor, they weren't $7,000 accounts.
but some of them were forced into having to sell, and that's what you've got. You got leveraged people. Saylor borrowed money to buy Bitcoin. I got somebody in there telling me sell 20,000. Maybe for a couple minutes.
John McAfee committed suicide, so he didn't have to eat his what, because it didn't go to 100, right? Anyway, there were a lot of big guys that lost a lot of money. I mean, Scaramucci had to close a fund because of it. Now he may go but right back into it.
Right, but that's the same cycle as anything else in commodities, right? Is when you get over leveraged, you get a collapse. So that's what we're seeing with Bitcoin right now. I got this guy in the chat room saying it's going to 1,000. Hey, maybe. I doubt it. I think that Bitcoin probably has an absolute bottom.
14.
Pretty close to where we are. Yeah, in the teens somewhere. It's hard to know. It's a volatile asset, but there are huge buyers. And if
where do you buy it and where do you domicile your cash in this environment? Is Coinbase the only place to execute it, or do you just find a way to buy it and put it in one of those wallets and carry it around?
So two ways. I use Coinbase to do my buying. The reason I use Coinbase is their biggest, and I always said that they'd end up being the safest. And when BlackRock got into bed with them, a month ago, 6 weeks ago, I think that was pretty well validated. Now, I do put a lot of Bitcoin in cold storage because I don't really trade it. I've just been accumulating it. So, I have a wallet, and it just, sits there, and I plug it in if I ever have to plug it in. I like the hard. I like the drives. So, you can do what you want. I'm just telling folks that I am not a guy who was a Bitcoin pusher, right? I bought it in 2016 as a trade because I saw the hype, and I sold it on the profit, and I did it again. And then in 2020, when it crashed, I really took a look at the fundamentals of Bitcoin, and it came down to being an adoption story. And the adoption is there. When you have the richest 2% of the people in the world saying, we're going to put some of our assets in this so that we can hide it from the government or move it around the world when we want to, and just as an alternative asset class, you start doing back of the napkin stuff.
If they were really smart, they would have adopted me.
Yeah, right.
Anyway, I have a question from one of our attendees.
Okay.
I can see coin going to 12K, and with all due respect, Kirk, how do you get around Bitcoin's energy usage problem?
So the energy usage problem is old news. I mean, almost all of the new production of Bitcoin has been alternative energy, and most of the old production of Bitcoin, which was mainly China up until a couple of years ago, has moved towards renewable energy. So the idea that, we're using up energy to mine Bitcoin is kind of a silly one, especially when you take a look at what's going on in Texas and Montana and everywhere else. Is when they have an energy shortage, what do? They turn off the Bitcoin miners and they send the energy back to the grid. And then when there's excess energy, they take it again. So this idea that it's, somehow perpetually imposing on the energy supply, or creating, more fumes in the air because it's using coal, it's just not right anymore. I'm not saying that wasn't the right story a couple of years ago when, Musk was tweeting about, but that's not really the way that it is anymore. Virtually all new Bitcoin miners, and even the old ones, have moved towards renewable energy, and they turn it off and on depending on what the needs and of the energy grid are. So that's just not a great argument anymore, even though it probably was at one time.
You want to wrap this with, do you have a view on the market and the Fed?
I've said that the Fed will back off sometime this year, but between now and then, I think that we test the bottom. Okay. Does it break through the bottom? That's a really good question, right? I think that there has to be a black swan or the Fed making a mistake. And I can't put it past the Fed that they might make a mistake. You know, somebody just mentioned
They
that.
always do.
Well, they mentioned that Christine Lagarde is a lawyer. Well, the guy that we got running our Fed is a lawyer too. So the economists, which, you know, flip a coin whether they're right or wrong half the time. I just think that they are set up with their rhetoric to make a big mistake. It is normal for the first quarter of the year to be the soft quarter. If they're smart, they'll back off before the first quarter. If they are dumb, they will wait until they've caused a big problem. So we'll see.
Okay. Another question. What do you think of circle and yield farming?
I don't even know what that is.
I think that's where people put up their Bitcoin for some type of yield on it, where they turn it in. Is that what it is, Tulin?
Yeah, I've loaned out all of my Ethereum. You know, I haven't even looked to see if I can touch it yet. Yeah, I just loaned all of the Ethereum out. So if you're talking about loaning out your coins, I think it's a great idea. You know, I really do. I think that as long as you're not using an organization that's highly leveraged, I think you're going to be fine.
Okay. All right. So
again, I use Coinbase because I trust them, and I love the fact that BlackRock got in their pocket.
Okay. So really, the narrative, and correct me if I'm wrong, that we're close to a top in the dollar. You didn't talk about what kind of decline we could get. Could the Dixie pull back to that 90 level where the rally started under Biden?
Yeah, so I think we definitely get into what I call the Goldilocks zone again. Definitely going to go back under, you know, into
back
that
under 104 would be negative, right? Back under that breakout.
Yeah, and then, you know, this area right in here, middle 90s. You know, back in 2014, and I got lambasted for this. I said within a decade the euro would be at parity with the dollar. And I pulled out some of my lines just to make this easier to read. But I said this a long time ago. So now here we are in this area where, again, we're running out of sellers on the euro, just like we're running out of buyers on the dollar. So you'd expect a reversal, I think, sometime this year. Will it be a sharp reversal? I don't know. I think it'll just be a trade for you guys. It's not much that I'll do with it. But I think it'll be a good trade if you can get a good signal to cherry pick, you know, whichever week it is that it reverses.
Yeah. Well, for $999, I'll send you a text. Anyway, right. So Kirk, your analysis, always enjoy your perspectives. Learned from you today. Politically, what is bullish and bearish for the dollar? Never thought of it in those terms. Best way for people to follow you, get in touch with you, work with you.
You know what? Follow me on Twitter. That's what I want. Just follow at Kirk Spano right here on Twitter. Okay. I don't put a ton out there, but I do send out some of my articles, and every now and then I make fun of somebody, and that's always amusing. I am apt to use some farmers' words because I'm from the edge of town at this point, and you know, I can smell the cows. So you know, it's just Kirk Spano at Twitter. You'll find everything else from there.
All right, my trading warrior brother, always rooting for you, still a fan, and great to talk to you to start this fall trading season out with everyone back from vacation. Right, good luck. Right. Good hunting, buddy.
Enjoy your surfing, sir.
Okay, and I'll get back to you. We're surfing over the flames out here, so I'll get a hold of you, and we'll get back together this fall-winter time frame, buddy.
All right, you take care.
All right, Kirk Spano, everybody. Follow him at Kirk Spano. It's real easy to spell, easy to find, and he's a great follow. So you could join the team now in about 20 minutes for the Morning Edge. Let's have a great September, everybody. And remember, most of all, don't just count your pips, count your blessings. I'll see you all tomorrow for Turnaround Wednesday. Adios. Thanks, Kirk.
Take care.
Hey traders, this is Blake Morrow with ForexAnalytix. Thanks for stopping by our YouTube channel. Don't forget to like these videos, share them, and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss any of the content that we provide here for free. Thanks for stopping by. I'll see you in the next video. And